Hello, everyone, and welcome to our talk series celebrating leaders who care. My name is Nafisa Devan, and I'm a psychologist and a social media associate at EAP India, which stands for Employee Assistance Program. We provide services to employees and their families to promote their mental and emotional well being. We have a presence pan India and globally. Today, we have the privilege and the opportunity to have with us Mr. Akshay. Mr. Akshay is a neurodivergent individual who is committed to fostering safe and inclusive workspaces. With a core philosophy rooted in kindness and empathy, he leverages his expertise in emotional intelligence and his multidisciplinary background to improve employee relations, promote gender and sexual identities, support individuals with disabilities, and enhance mental health wellness. By integrating HR departments with communities of care and kindness, Akshay drives collaboration and social justice, making organizations more productive and ensuring that every employee feels cherished and respected. Holding a master's degree in sociology and communication and working as a DEI and talent management consultant, he utilizes his skills in research, communication, strategic DEI initiatives to create meaningful change. So, welcome, Akshay. We are so glad that you could remove this time of yours to be on this talk show for us. Before we start with more profound questions, I wanted to know what is it that you do? I mean, we did read this beautiful introduction of yours, but can you tell us a little bit about what do you do?
Thank you, everyone. This is Akshay. Thank you so much for your warm welcome. I work as a DEI and talent management consultant with DTP Mudra Group. Basically, in that job, I get to make workplaces safe. I get to track and design DEI metrics from the management team. I'm also involved in the talent management side, where we design programs for leadership, especially for women, for marginalized folks. Uh, and under the DA rubric, we get to have workshops, sensitization classes, accessibility audits. We work with marginalized groups to make workplaces more safer, more disabled friendly, and more equitable.
All right, sounds wonderful. And given your line of work, I'm assuming you work a lot with HRs and in the corporate sectors. And I saw that in your introduction, you do define yourself as neurodivergent. So can you tell us a little about that and how has been your experience working as a neurodivergent in the corporate sector?
I always introduce myself. Hi, I'm Akshay. I'm a neurodivergent individual with multiple invisible disabilities. It is not to garner sympathy or it is not to garner anybody's attention. It is just to inform that every of my word, action, thought will be marked by my identity. And my identity is a political identity. My body is a political body, right? So my thought process, the way, the brain is shaped, the way my body is responding to nuances of the world is completely related to my work, right? So that's why even in workplaces, I begin with that introduction. So as a neurodivergent individual, I can speak from personal experience about the challenges and opportunities that I've faced in the corporate sector. Initially, I faced barriers to communication, sensory sensitivities, and social interactions. However, I also discovered that my neurodivergent traits provide me with unique strengths, something like pattern recognition and attention to detail and innovative ideas to come up with problem solving abilities that nobody else is seeing probably. With the right support and accommodations, I have been able to thrive and contribute significantly to my work and the organizations that I have been part of. It is important to create an inclusive culture for me and for everyone else that values diverse neurotypes and provides reasonable adjustments to enable neurodivergent individuals to unleash their potential.
All right, amazing. In fact, I think you mentioned that you do face a little bit difficulty socializing, and it's so fascinating to see the line of work you picked, because that does involve a lot of people interaction and everything. So I think in a way it's quite inspiring how you choose to use that as as your strength rather than holding it back. So that's amazing, pretty inspiring as well. Right. So let's talk a little more about your line of work then. You have been working in the field of DEI. So what are some things that you could share with us? How do you view this diversity, equity, and inclusivity as?
Right. Even though DEI is a big thing in especially US and the West, DEI is a budding field in India. It's a niche category. A lot of organizations, startups, they really don't want to invest in DEI because, frankly, I think it's because of ignorance. They simply do not know the magic of DEI. DEI, in my view, is the foundation for building successful and sustainable organization. And the word is sustainable. Uh, the key word here is sustainable. I think that is the key foundation to any organization. It encompasses DEI. It encompasses valuing and respecting individuals for who they are and regardless of their background, identity, or abilities. DEI is about creating an environment where everyone feels included, empowered, and has equitable opportunities to succeed. It involves acknowledging and addressing systemic barriers and structural barriers that hinder groups, marginalized groups, from fully participating and progressing in the workplace. DA is not just a moral imperative. It is definitely a big moral imperative, but it's also a business imperative, as diverse perspectives drive innovation, creativity, and better decision making. It is DA is an ongoing journey that requires continuous, learning, self-reflection, and commitment, especially from the leadership to fostering inclusivity. It is a philosophy that becomes the bedrock of a great organization.
Right. So if you were to sort of explain this to a very, in a very layman language, if so, because I think a lot of us do know about diversity and inclusivity, but that equity bit in between, I think that does get lost on a lot. So if you, in a very layman language, how would you explain it to someone?
Equity, right?
Sorry?
The word equity, right?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So a lot of confusion is there regarding the word equity and equality. Equality premises on the fact that we all have the same available resources, structures, pathways to gain something. So it just assumes the famous graphics, like the famous picture example, right? I want to pick an apple from a tree. But if I'm short, if I'm a kid, if I'm
Hmm.
disabled, I do not have the same opportunity. You can talk about
Right.
equality. The equality is you have an apple out there to pick. That is the equality promise.
Hmm.
Equity is breaking down the structures which prevent me from not getting that apple, right?
Hmm.
And equity is where something like affirmative action comes in, something like reservations comes in, because it gives the individual the competency power, the opportunity to start the competition on a same level with a just say a cis hetero savarna able-bodied man,
Hmm.
right? So that ground, providing that ground so that you can start on the same level and using structures to enable that, using measures and advocacies and policies to enable that, is equity. So I know for a common person it might be still be complicated, but just reducing it to one line, removing all kind of hindrances, structures from accessing a result or an initiative, is
Hmm.
equity. Equality is the premise that it is available and it promises you get a chance. Equity is where you level the ground to make that chance.
Right. I think that simplifies it for everyone, because I think for a very long time, only thing you could hear is DNI. So the equity thing was largely a myth. And
Absolutely.
based on the explanation you've given, I feel like it's even more important to talk about equity, because I think diversity and inclusivity, they get combined if there's equity. I think it plays a very
Yeah.
important. So, you do work in that field a lot. Have you seen corporates include that, openly? Has there been any progress in how they are viewing this aspect?
Right. Uh, there has been certainly progress in the implementation of DA in the workplace, but there is a long way to go. Sometimes, what Indian organizations tend to do is they copy paste the same strategies from the West, which is heavily focused on like great concepts like gender equality and racial equality. While gender
Hmm.
equality is still a myth in India, and great work needs to be done to ensure gender equality, that is only the primary axis that now Indian DI focus on. We have to talk about casteism. We have to talk about Islamophobia. We have to
Hmm.
talk about transphobia. But the central two premises I feel as of now Indian DA should tackle head on is casteism and Islamophobia, the two
Hmm.
most persecuted minorities in the country. The
Hmm.
fact that we are stuck, I'm not against gender equality and gender leadership programs. They should go with full force. But our primary axis, our full energy seems to be there and get stuck there. I think we
Hmm.
need to be more inclusive. Only when we start talking about casteism, Islamophobia, transphobia, then only we can talk about something like disability. Disability is completely out of the conversation. In the sense it is
Hmm.
not even there in the Indian DS space.
Hmm.
The conversations around disability, they are one of the most invisibilized because they have been invisibilized
Hmm.
by the corporate spaces. So it's only by taking these steps that we can go into the next thing. So for this, we'll have to establish, policies, training programs. We have to create resource groups to support these underrepresented communities.
Hmm.
So I think the most important thing is uh, it should trickle down from the leadership. The leadership, the top management, the CEOs, and the head of all the departments should take a very political decision to enrich and to enable their organizations to fully fulfill, self-actualize, and they can only do that by sustained DI activities. But definitely they have to be more comprehensive. Now, as of now, it's very narrow, so the
Hmm.
focus needs to be more comprehensive.
Absolutely. And I'm actually quite glad that you brought this up because it's always been in my mind about how narrow we've kept the idea of inclusivity. Whereas inclusivity should be about just inclusion of everything, not just, about gender or about the aspect of LGBTQ. It's so much more than that, especially
Absolutely.
culture relevant. Our inclusive policies should be culture relevant. And like you mentioned, for India, I think casteism is one of the most prevailing and the longest issue that we've been
Absolutely.
dealing with. So yeah, I and about the disability thing also. I think I was reading an article about somewhere in the HR magazine where they spoke about how none of the inclusive policies are ever inclusive of disabled individuals, right? I think,
Absolutely.
and over there it gets amidst because I mean, I have a colleague who has learning disability, and I know how difficult it is for him to just write an email, but he can't come forward and say that because it might seem like he's not competent enough to do that. So I think I love that you actually brought that up because I think that's a conversation that we all need to have more proactively.
Absolutely. Yes. Yes. Yeah. Spot on.
So this brings me to my next question. Um, like we're in the month of June, and there is this thing called well-being washing, where all these organizations would just suddenly become pro LGBTQ and pro Pride and
Hmm.
everything.
Hmm.
And I'm pretty sure we are towards the end of June. So I'm pretty sure in another week or two, it's all going to slowly die down and it's going to be back to normal. So, what's your take about all of these months? Because before June, in the month of May, it was the mental health awareness month, and everyone was
Yes.
so pro mental health. But clearly, we're not seeing anyone talking about it now. So, do you think celebrating these months is actually helpful, or it just allows the organizations to get that check that we've done something? What do you
Right.
think?
I always thought about the fact that DA teams are only visible in organizations during couple of months, March because Women's History Month, right? June mein to DA people are like sought out from everywhere. Like you find from the register of employees, where are the DA people? Where are the DA people? And this is the 2 months they're hyper visibilized DA folks, right? So one of the things that I have thought about this, and I think celebrating months which talks about underrepresented communities, something like Women's History Month and Black History Month.
Hmm.
It is extremely sad that no Indian corporate, just a few progressive DA consultancies, but no Indian corporates talked about Dalit History Month, which was in April.
Hmm.
Right? It is a significant month.
Hmm.
It is of prominence, right? So I think celebrations of months dedicated to specific causes are effective and relevant. The fact that they are at least being talked about for a month, I know is not really sounding the best, but the fact that they get, what do you call,
A space to be.
a space to be acknowledged, seen,
Hmm.
and heard. This should be definitely an year-long thing.
Hmm.
Absolutely, if you are going to, you know, if you're going to be out loud there, proud and supportive of your co-workers, that should not be limited to 1 month. But I think these observances provide an opportunity to raise awareness, foster dialogue, promote understanding about these issues. I think they are also a
Hmm.
catalyst for meaningful conversations, education, and advocacies both within and outside the workplace. I think by acknowledging these months, organizations demonstrate their commitment to inclusivity and equality. But however, crucial to ensure that these celebrations go beyond symbolic gestures and are accompanied by
Hmm.
tangible action and ongoing support throughout the year.
Hmm. Absolutely. So, speaking of raising awareness, then, um, I see, I mean, if you open LinkedIn, everything is just rainbow color, right?
Yep,
So do you think that's helping in the raising of awareness? Because I think a lot of it, I personally believe, is very performative. I mean, I know that
absolutely.
I was a part of one consultancy, and in order to celebrate Pride Month, they asked us to, put our pronouns at the end of our name for our emails. And in my mind, it just seemed very pointless because uh,
Absolutely.
one, what if I'm not comfortable with that? And they made it a compulsory thing that we all need to do that. But what if I'm someone who's not comfortable, putting my pronouns out there in my email? And secondly, what exactly are we achieving through that? So
Right.
I found it to be quite performative. What is your take about the whole changing your logos and being an ally?
I agree with your point of it being performative. I think rainbow washing is not something that we should organizations should do. Yeah, symbolic support, I get your point, but if the LGBTQ folks in your company is fitting because of homophobia and because of transphobia, you are really not pulling your stuff together. Really, it should. If you want to have meaningful change, give your trans folks employees insurances which cover for gender
Absolutely.
recon
Yeah.
gen, gender affirming surgeries, right? Gender affirming
Mhm.
surgeries. Give them, policies which, help them, what you call, be more grounded and more included in companies' policies. Yeah, it raises. Oh, yeah, rainbow washing raises awareness, visibility of the LGBTQ community during the Pride Month. It also sends a message to employers and customers: we care for you, but there is so much to be done. So much to be done via action, or they should walk the talk. I do not necessarily support the putting up the rainbow themed logos. I think
Mhm.
that time is done. You should performative activism is nice, but it would have been nice 3 4 years ago. In 2023,
Mhm.
companies can do better. They should have commitment. The commitment should be about inclusion. They should give inclusive benefits, policies, provide training, support employee resource group, promote DEI teams, promote diversity in leadership. How many Indian organizations have LGBTQ folks up there in the top leadership? Forget CEOs. How many management? How many in top management? How many CHROs? How many CFOs do we have who recognize themselves as from the community? So I think we should do more for, especially in the workplace. It is not enough. Tokenism, rainbow washing simply won't cut it anymore.
Right. And like you said, I think we are way ahead in the conversation to be, showing these performative acts. I think a couple of years ago, it would have been like a great deal for big corporates to change, but I think it's time for action. I think we've had the talk for years now. So yeah, I absolutely agree with you. So this
I will
brings me to
complicate it this little further. I'm so sorry,
yeah, yeah,
but
no,
I'll
no, please go
complicate
ahead.
this further because so if you have been observing US politics, and a lot of transphobia has seeped in, and
Hmm.
when I think it was Target who turned their logo to a rainbow themed logo, and they faced a major backlash, and they had to take it down. And I think it's Target. So now companies are placing flag just being symbolic itself. So I think in that time, can companies take the decision to put a stand out there, saying
Hmm.
that no, we don't really care, we are going to stand up. That is our commitment. Then it's a welcome step. But yeah, in India, I don't think a lot of companies face any flag for making it
Hmm.
rainbow themed, colored. Most of the employees have no clue actually, because they're simply not cued into this, and the HR department, the DA departments do not do enough of education, advocacy, and sensitization to make them value and understand this.
Right. But do these big corporates really face a backlash because they are such giants and with money and power and everything? I'm assuming they have opportunity to get through whatever they do. But it's so surprising to know that despite
Yeah,
that, the sort of that rebel towards just a logo is so huge amongst people. Very
yeah, the
surprising.
backlash is actually very real, because at the end of the day, it's a business, and business needs consumers. And once you majorly tick off, or piss off a huge block of consumers, you are losing business. And as much as for them, okay, we'll turn it into a logo. It's a Canva thing. It's simply a click away. They don't lose anything, and they will do it if they will get profit out of it. So they won't lose. They wouldn't take a chance in which they will risk their customers. And conservative customers are a huge block in US, right?
Hmm.
Especially in the South.
Hmm.
So they won't take the chance. They really won't, because business first. And I think this is where corporations, corporations need to balance out. Where do they see business? How committed are they to social justice?
No, that's, I mean, I think I got to learn that now that, corporates are actually getting that backlash because I always assumed it's so easy for them to just, have that logo done and get through it. But I think then it makes what you said that despite that, if you take a stand, then the action becomes even more concrete and more effective in
Concrete.
that sense.
Absolutely. That's it.
So then, my next question to you is about our biases when it comes to us working in the workplace, right? So there are conscious biases that we are aware of, and there are these unconscious biases. um in your line of experience, have you obviously they're unconscious, so you it's not in our conscious awareness, but do you think unconscious bias play a very important role when it comes to us not being inclusive, or or because I've seen so many leaders use that as a thing that oh, this is an unconscious bias. So do you think that's an actual active play when it comes to our inability to be as inclusive as we would hope to?
Absolutely. I will give unconscious bias 100% score in hindering our chances to being more inclusive. They are unconscious bias are deeply ingrained. It's part of yourself, and not in a very detrimental way, because it's been ingrained, conditioned as such.
Hmm.
And it's the attitudes that we hold unconsciously, like it's by societal norms, personal experiences, and these biases can manifest in the workplace. It can have a detrimental impact on decision making, something as common as hiring process,
Hmm.
promotion, overall inclusion, right? So recognizing and addressing the unconscious bias is crucial actually for any inclusive environment. To tackle unconscious bias, organizations can actually take several strategies, and I will give you four here. One is education and awareness. They can provide training, sensitization classes, workshop to increase awareness about unconscious bias,
Hmm.
their impact, and how they can be mitigated. There's something called bias interrupters. So by
Okay.
implementing policies, practices, that severely counter biases in recruitment, performance evaluation, and decision-making process, they can actively interrupt the bias. So this may involve structured interviews, diverse interview panels, something like screened resumes where they will hide the name, the gender, everything, and objective performance criteria. The third will be intensive diversity and inclusion programs. By developing D&I, DEI programs to promote,
Hmm.
uh, you know, DEI goals, they can take mentorship programs. They can start employee resource groups. They can, talk about networking opportunities, connecting individuals from, diverse backgrounds. And the fourth, and I think the most important, is to cultivate inclusive leadership. Throughout this conversation, I will keep on talking about how inclusion, DEI, the philosophy should trickle down from the leadership. We should encourage leaders to examine their own biases and modeling inclusive behaviors. Leaders should actively promote diversity, listen to diverse perspective, and create a psychologically safe space for all employees.
Hmm.
And I think one of the two phrases here that's key is listening and psychological safety. Everyone, no employee does not, they do not need to feel unsafe in the workplace because of who they are, what they think, what they wear, what they eat, or who they're sleeping with. It
Hmm.
just should not simply matter. So I
Hmm.
think by adopting these approaches, organizations can challenge unconscious bias, create fairer processes, and cultivate a culture of inclusivity.
That's actually quite an interesting approach towards tackling it. And what I find the most interesting is the aspect of tackling it. That
Mhm.
even though it's an unconscious bias, it is something that is still solvable, right? Because a lot of times, because it's unconscious, it's easy escape for us also that, oh, I'm not
Yeah,
aware about my biases. So if you're not aware, then I don't need to, do something about it. But the fact that
right.
we can still work on it, despite the fact that it being unconscious, and I think it's unconscious also because it's generations of same thing that's been conditioned into us to the point that we don't
Absolutely.
realize that it's coming out for us.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely. Yep.
Right. So I think what you've shared is going to be helpful to the listeners a lot, because I think the strategies you've given are very actionable and they are quite
Yeah, yeah.
easy to implement. So it's not something that
It,
would require too much of resources as well. So
all
yeah,
you would need is commitment, and it's just how committed are you to the course. And it requires deep introspection of people in power, people in leadership positions, to
mm,
ask this question: how committed am I? Am I doing this to tick the diversity box so that I can present it in the annual report, or do I really want change and more diverse people, more innovative ideas, more better decision making in my organization?
yeah. I think in a way, commitment is the most expensive resources that organizations
Absolutely.
have. Right. So I am finding your line of thought quite impressive, right? And it shows that you've worked in this field quite extensively because of the knowledge that you have, because it's not a very superficial or surface level information or knowledge that you have. And I'm sure that when you started out, it must be it's work and experience and your commitment, even your commitment to the field that has brought such profound knowledge in you. What is something about this field that you find fascinating or something that you learned along the way?
Yeah. So one aspect of being in the DI journey about for me has been, if I need to pick up one aspect, it would be like the transformative power of storytelling. And
Hmm.
storytelling is the word used and abused in the corporate space, I'm aware. But when I got the true essence of the word, I could see the power of storytelling. When individuals share their personal journey, experiences related to DEI, it has potential to create a profound impact. Right? Storytelling allows people to connect on a human
Hmm.
fostering, it can foster empathy, understanding, it can break down barriers, right? So by sharing stories of lived experiences, or individuals from marginalized or underrepresented communities, they can like raise awareness about their challenges, triumphs, perspective. This not only helps educate others, but also empowers individuals to create an environment where everyone feels seen, heard, and valued. In my LinkedIn profile, you would see, I would talk about something like not only feel uh, cherished, but deeply respected. And that can only be felt through being seen and valued. So I think, moreover, storytelling has the ability to challenge stereotypes, debunk misconceptions, bridge gaps between different groups. It humanizes the DA conversations. It makes it relatable. It inspires action. So one of the examples that I can talk about is if you talk to trans folks, and they tell you their story, you will realize that they have had the same struggles as you as a child. They have had the same issues as some of the same issues that you had in school during board exams, where they was trying to find like a way of their own at workplaces. Some of the issues are so common, right? And we have constantly othered the community so much. We have othered Muslims. We have othered the Dalit community. We have othered trans folks so much that it has become a violent process. So we cannot relate to them, and the media does not help. The media fuels the divisive narratives, right? So the fact that you know the people who are what you call from the privileged position, they should also step down. Not step down is the wrong word. They should also lend their ear, right? Because I can only story tell as a neurodivergent person if an able-bodied neurotypical person has the space and the commitment to listen. I cannot force that person to listen and accept my story, right? And the tragedy is ki now marginalized folks, it's the tragedy is ki the labor to make them educate the upper caste able-bodied cis hetero folks is on the marginalized communities, that they have to do the labor, and they should not do the labor. Like, there is absolutely no need for them to come and teach us, right?
Right.
We should do the work. And that's why DA is so important. It teaches basically to step off your helm, take off your shoes, step down, instead of taking the mic, pass the mic, right? So I think it's incredibly important to understand storytelling, but storytelling can only suffer, work when there is space, and space can only be created if you shut up, if you are ready to listen, if the privileged people are ready to pipe down and listen. And listening is an incredible quality that I find missing in corporate spaces. Everybody's talking over each other. Everybody wants to be seen, heard, and felt competent. Nobody wants to stop, calm down, and listen. And I think listening, storytelling has that connection.
Absolutely. And I think a very important aspect of storytelling is, like you said, right? The privileged people need to really shut up and give that space to the people who are living those experiences. A lot of
Absolutely.
times we try to step in and tell their stories on their behalf. And I've seen this majority in media, like all the
Yeah,
movies, everything we make these movies in the form of education and awareness, but there's no representation in those movies. So
absolutely.
it's sort of our version of what we feel is going on with them, rather than actually asking and passing the mic to them and allowing for them to share the story the way they have been experiencing. And
Absolutely.
I think that is a very important aspect, that not just organizations, I think as a society as a whole, we really need to give that just pass on the mic to people who actually are in charge of these things and are
Yeah,
at the receiving end of whatever we are doing, right? So in storytelling also, then a lot of times those who are out, those who are more extroverted, those who are more comfortable with things, they still can manage to get that space to talk about it, right? What about the individuals who are more introverted, more closeted about their identities, whatever identity that could be, right? Any kind of minorities, because I know a lot of people, be it caste, be it religion, be it anything, they try to remove that identity rather than owning it, and then seeing how to create that space. So how can, as an organization, can we help these closeted individuals feel safe in the workplace?
right. So a lot of people, lot of like in corporates and in workspaces, a lot of people think about something called it's quite funny actually. It's called caste equity. There is no caste equity. Caste is to be annihilated, is to be dismantled. It is not like gender where we are like, chalo, we'll have LGBTQ plus like things. Caste system needs to be annihilated. It's an artificial system.
Yeah,
It is a
yeah.
system of graded inequality. So I will pick up your question with an example of gender identity here, and how we can create a safe space for
Hmm.
people who are not comfortable yet to open up about their gender identity at work. First of all power to them. No pressure to open up to
Yeah,
the workplace, the employer. The backlash can be intense. 90% of the like organizations do not know how to accommodate individuals with non-cis hetero characteristics. So I completely support not coming out. If you are quite here, all power to you. When you do decide to come out, my support to you will still be there. But what can organizations do so that they make it more safer, inclusive? Is key. They can have something called a confidential support channel. So they can have a confidential channel where there's a dedicated email address or anonymous suggestion box where employees can seek support, ask questions, and share their concerns without revealing their identity. Right. So this provides a safe avenue, and I have been thinking about this for some time. Who this provides a safe awareness for some people who are not, like ready to disclose their gender identity at work. The other and the most important thing is inclusive policies and practices. We have to implement policies that are protective of employees and that do not discriminate based on gender identity or expression. We have to ensure that these policies are clearly communicated and widely known throughout this organization. So it should be printed in the employee handbooks, the intranet portals, their the whole internal communications thing. And yeah, the third thing that they can do is something like ERGs, employee resource groups, where they can address LGBTQ issues. The largest demographic of people in corporates is 95% cis hetero people. They should take the initiative to start LGBTQ ERGs just to make them aware, just to make educate themselves, not to speak for them, not to actively loudly say कि, hey, we have an ERG, we are LGBTQ ERG, the lesbian gay folks can now come out because we are now a safe place. No, take it as a challenge to educate, learn, invite speakers, watch films, listen to folks when there. So that ERG can be focused ERG, which can talk about it. So they can organize events, educational sessions, awareness campaigns, like I've mentioned. HR should take training and sensitization seriously. So they have to continuously talk about LGBTQ awareness, gender identity, something like terminology, pronouns, like you mentioned, and challenges faced by these individuals. So that can be one of the things. I think allyship is a huge thing in workspaces. So if you are not someone from the community, actively support, advocate, talk about it, stand up with them if possible, create a culture of acceptance, provide a network of support to those who may feel isolated. And I think one of the things that HR and also the corporate head should probably talk about is flexibility and accommodations. So there should be flexibility in work arrangements and accommodations to ensure that individuals can manage their gender identity in a way that feels it feels comfortable to them. Something like gender neutral restrooms, total abolishment of dress codes, and the ability to use pronouns and names. It can be some of the things. And these are some of the steps, but organizations can continually assess themselves and improve their practices in an ongoing basis.
Right. I think those are some, again, quite actionable strategies and something that is easy to implement also. I mean,
Absolutely.
you don't really have to go out of your way to just create a safe space for employees,
It's
right?
all commitment. I'm telling you, it's all how committed are you to the cause.
Absolutely right. So on that note, we have come to the end of this brilliant interview. What is a small message that you would like to share with all of our listeners before we wrap it up?
Right. I think my message to employers and especially leaders of the future is to embrace diversity, equity, and inclusion as core values and integrate them to every aspect of your organization. And if folks should recognize that diversity goes beyond visible differences and it encompasses a range of identities, perspectives, and experiences. Try to actively seek out and amplify marginalized voices to ensure that all employees are heard and represented. You should invest in building inclusive cultures, fostering belonging, and providing equitable opportunities to all. Develop that safe space, provide psychological safety, develop policies and practices that eliminate biases. Introspect deeply on your recruitment practices and biases. Think about how the performance evaluation promotion process is. Do you see a pattern in who gets promoted? Do you see that women do not get a lot of promotions? Is that something that you can talk about? Right. Continuously invest in DEI teams, uh, especially focus on training and education. And the problem is even if DEI team takes classes, workshops, leaders do not attend. Leaders are the first one they should attend. They should lead by example. They should continuously remember that DEI is not a one-time initiative. It is not a checkbox thing. But to regularly assess programs, listen to feedback, and adapt strategies accordingly. Should engage in meaningful partnership with external organizations, communities to learn best practices. Right. Ultimately, I think recognizing that DEI is not just the right thing to do morally, but it also drives innovation, enhance employee engagement, and leads to long-term organizational success. And by prioritizing DEI, you can create a workplace that empowers individual and fosters growth, right? And you can also have such a positive impact on society because a workplace is a microcosm of a society. One thing that I would want to take away to the leaders here is listen and commit. Two words. I think that two words should be the answer to this question in the end.
Right, absolutely. And I think I have personally learned a lot of aspects of the I think, like I said, I have always just understood diversity and inclusivity, and so often as separate identities, right? But a lot of things that you shared, a lot of areas that are not still spoken about, I am so glad that
Absolutely.
we addressed those in this conversation, and that you shared your experience about it. And we did, in a way, we went outside the mostly spoken about aspects of inclusivity, and it's not just about gender identity and everything. It's so much more, and I'm so glad that we spoke about that over here. It was an absolute pleasure talking to you, Akshay. And anything else that you would like to add? It was a great conversation. Thank you so much for removing your time and being here with us and sharing your wonderful thoughts with us.
The pleasure is all but mine. I hope if someone listens to this, they take it with an open spirit, open mind. And yeah, I'm not perfect. I don't have all the answers. None of the DA people, if they say they do, they don't. They stay away from them. We're here to learn. We're here to listen, and mostly we are here to be better people. And thank you for giving me this opportunity so that I could share my views. I really respect that.
Thank you so much. And yeah, have a great rest of the day and an amazing weekend. Thank you once again for doing this and being on this talk show
Thank
with
you.
us.
Thank you so much. Sure.
All right.
Okay.